The Eminence in Shadow, Episode 13, A Bloody Showdown as an Offering to Annihilation, aka the episode where people get to finally realize why Delta is the best girl. And we just get Delta just being awesome, cutting through Nelson and all of his copies, along the way getting a bunch of shots from behind and low. So we get a lot of booty shots, a lot of booty and booby shots, I should say, of Delta. But she's just cutting through Nelson without any problems. But she is noticing that her slime is acting a little bit weird. And that's when Nelson explains that the closer they are to Sanctuary, the more power is drained from them. Like the more their magic gets sucked out. And Alpha notices that while our powers are being drained, you're becoming stronger. You're becoming more powerful the closer that you are to the center. And Nelson admits that, yeah, that's true, and that he was hoping that he was able to lure them in closer, but he wasn't able to. But this should be enough. Like, they should be close enough for him to be able to easily defeat Shadow Garden. And then we cut to Cid and Aurora, who we get this interesting moment where they're walking through, it's like the void, and it's almost like they're stepping on each other in a sense. Like Cid's upside down, Aurora is not. They land inside this battlefield memory, and we get this just interesting moment where Aurora ends up sitting on Cid's ass as he's laying on the floor. Yeah, eventually they discover the battlefield, and in the center of all these casualties is a young version of Aurora, crying. Aurora admits that she was a crybaby as a kid. She asks for Cid's sword. He gives it to her, and Aurora kind of drags the sword towards her younger version, and she plans on killing her younger version to end the memory. But as she's about to do so, she gets attacked by zombie soldiers, and Cid has to come in and save the day. And eventually Aurora explains that Sanctuary is rejecting them. It's rejecting Aurora and Cid. And Cid asks, well, what happens if you die? Like, if these zombies end up getting you? And she says, well, I'll probably return to the first room where we met. And Cid is like, that's kind of obnoxious. Then we cut to Epsilon. And eventually they find this library that has like all these books and stuff on the possessed and Sanctuary and things like that. They reveal that they have a Polaroid camera that was created by Ida. And they start snapping photos of all the pages so that they can take it with them, because they can't take the books physically since this is nothing but a memory. But if they take pictures of the memories, they'll have the evidence that they need. And we cut back to Cid and Aurora, where Cid just easily starts beating the monsters, the zombies. And eventually he goes and he kills the young version of Aurora, ending the memory. And the two reach the center of the Sanctuary, which is a giant door blocked by a bunch of chains. And there's this special sword stuck in stone in front of it. And that's when Aurora says that we need to destroy the magic core, but it's on the other side of the door. And Cid kind of looks at the door and he's like, I was thinking about cutting the chains, but I think as soon as I try, the sword will break. And Aurora says, yeah, we need some kind of key. And she explains that the key is the sword stuck in stone in front of the door. It can be used to cut the chains. But Cid looks at it and he realizes that he won't be able to pull it out of the ground. And so he grabs it and he tries to pull, and it doesn't work, confirming what he already knew. And that has to be pulled out by the chosen one. And we get this like funny moment where Aurora looks at the sword and realizes that the holy sword can only be drawn by direct descendants. And she was surprised that Cid, just by looking at it, realizes that he couldn't draw the sword. And he's like, well, I'm well versed in the standard formulas. And he's basically talking about like story formulas, about how like this sword is basically like Excalibur, and only a chosen worthy one can pull it. And the chosen worthy one is the protagonist, but Cid's not the protagonist. As Cid likes to say, he's the Eminence. He's the shadow character. He's the one that lurks from the shadows, fights from the shadows. So he needs a protagonist to pull it out. So that's what he means by formula. But Aurora believes that he's talking about like all the countless magical scripts and encryptions and patterns, and that Cid has memorized this formula. But yeah, they both realize as well, there's no way we can break this door. So they kind of just sit down, try to figure out what to do. And that's when we cut back to Delta, who is just slaughtering through countless Nelson copies. As she's doing so, her slime is disappearing because her magic is wavering. But she's just cackling maniacally as she's slicing through them. And it was at this point in time that I realized, oh crap, the voice actress for Delta is the same voice actress for Power from Chainsaw Man. The Japanese voice actress is the same. I was like, okay, that makes sense because Delta basically is like the power of the Eminence and Shadow. She's just slicing through all of them as Delta's just going battle crazy and cutting through. We just see Delta like just losing parts of her clothing. We see how ripped she is. Like she's got abs of steel. But she's just going berserk against all these Nelson copies. And as this is going on, Alexia is watching this. And Alexia is kind of wondering if Delta is actually working for Shadow, because all the other Shadow Guard members are very like sophisticated with their techniques when it comes to fighting. But Delta is not. Delta's fighting style is just pure strength and brutality and violence, which is why she's the best girl. But yeah, she just keeps slicing through all these different versions of Nelson. She eventually creates like this giant slab of slime iron, I guess. It's kind of like Guts' sword, only just like even bigger, and she just uses it to flan a bunch of Nelsons. But yeah, Nelson is like starting to freak out. He's wondering like, how is Delta able to defeat so many copies of him without breaking a sweat? Like he's creating hundreds of copies and Delta's just easily slicing through them. And Alpha basically says that it doesn't matter how many copies you are, they all have one brain and you can't control all of them. So this is going to be an easy fight for us basically. And that's when Nelson sees a statue of Olivier, and he calls forth Olivier, and Olivier appears. And at this point in time, Epsilon arrives, and she basically says that, yeah, our investigation is over. We can leave. Yeah, Nelson's kind of surprised because he thought that they were going to have like this big battle, and Olivier was going to cut down Alpha and Shadow Garden. But Alpha's like, nah, like, I don't care about fighting Olivier. We were just here for the information, and now we got it, so we're good. They create an escape. Shadow Guard members start going through it. Delta still wants to fight, and we just get this cute moment where Alpha does her Delta voice. It basically turns Delta from a berserker into a cute little puppy. Like as soon as she uses that voice, all the like anger and berserk rage in Delta just evaporates, and she becomes very timid and scared. And she goes through the portal. And yeah, another member creates another portal for Beta, Alexia, and Rose to go through. And as Beta is about to go through, she turns to Alexia and she says, you can stay here if you want, Alexia. A dark, gloomy place is perfect for you. And she goes through. And then, of course, Alexia gets pissed off. And yeah, they end up going through the portal. So everyone leaves. And Nelson's just all by himself. And that's when he realizes that there's someone else within Sanctuary and they're near the core, the center. So he disappears with Olivier. That's when we cut back to Cid and Aurora, who have been using this time to play tic-tac-toe. So yeah, there's just a bunch of like tic-tac-toe marks scratched on the floor as Cid's basically waiting for the protagonist to show up. He tells Aurora, it's like, time's it's gonna be any minute now. And all of a sudden he sees this light and he's like, this is it. This is the protagonist of the story is finally arriving. And Nelson appears and Cid's like super confused. He's like, wait, this Baldy is the protagonist? That doesn't make any sense. That's when he finally sees Olivier and he's kind of shocked at first because he's like, Olivier looks exactly like Alpha. But yeah, we just get like this funny moment where Cid and Aurora are basically talking about the Baldy, about Nelson. And they just keep using the word Baldy over and over again. Nelson just starts getting super pissed off, and eventually he tells Olivier to attack Cid. And Cid's just blocking all her shots. Eventually, she gets some hits in, and Cid's a bit upset. He realizes that a battle without conversation is tedious, and that Olivier, like, her heart isn't in this. She doesn't have a heart. She isn't answering any of his questions. Kind of going back to when he was fighting Aurora and how, like, that was, like, the greatest conversation he's ever had with someone. With Olivier is the opposite. There is no conversation. He's like kind of bored of this fight. But eventually, Olivier goes to finish him off, and Aurora like jumps in and asks Nelson to stop. She basically says that I don't remember my past well because I don't have all my memories. I know that no human can defeat Olivier. She tells Cid that like I have enough memories and I've made some new memories with you. It's more than I could have asked for. And Nelson says that he'll let Cid go if Aurora promises to work with him. That basically when she was young, she constantly was getting in the way and disrupting their studies. And if she finally just accepts working with Sanctuary, he'll let Cid go. And she agrees. And that's when Cid gets like kind of pissed off. He's like, "Oi, what's wrong with you? Why do you like assume that I'm gonna lose? Why do you assume that I can't win? Like that's very annoying." Yeah, he basically says, "I don't need help. Stop assuming I'm gonna lose." Nelson gets annoyed and sends Olivier to go kill Cid, and she jumps in and stabs him. And that's when Cid smiles, and his right eye, which he's kept closed the entire episode, which was kind of weird. I was kind of wondering about that. Like, why is his eye closed? Well, we find out why. As soon as Olivier stabs Cid, he smirks, his right eye opens, and there's like magic coming from it. And he's like, "Gotcha." And that's how it ends. So, yeah, I love this episode. Not only do we get a bunch of cool fight scenes, we get some moments between Aurora and Cid, which are very nice. I guess if I were to ship anyone in this series, it would be them too. But most important, we get Delta. We get Delta being the best girl. We get Delta just going berserk, fighting like crazy, cutting down Nelson over and over again, cackling madly as she indulges in this violence. Meanwhile, as this is happening, her slime suit is disappearing, so she gets more and more nude as this is going on. So, like, what more could you ask for? So, yeah, I thought this was great. Freaking loved it, mostly for Delta and the amount of screen time that she gets. But yeah, other than that, I mean, there were also just other good moments here. Especially, there was a moment where Epsilon, like her and her group, as they're like taking pictures of the archives, they start realizing that their slime is slipping away and that the sanctuary is draining them of their magic. Epsilon's just being cool and calm and collect. She's like, "Don't worry about it. Just keep taking photos. We'll deal with the magic later." And then all of a sudden, 2 lumps fall to the floor, and it's her slime boobs. And there's just like this awkward moment of silence where no one says anything. And all of a sudden, the slime boobs, the 2 lumps merge back onto Epsilon's chest to create her jiggling boobs. And then she just kind of stares. And then she's like, "Did anyone see what happened?" Silence. And then she repeats it again. "Did anyone see what happened?" And everyone's like just meekly going, no, we didn't see anything. And I was like, all right, that was pretty good. But yeah, I loved it. Good episode. Kind of just repeating myself at this point in time. But there you go. There's the Eminence and Shadow, episode 13. A bloody showdown as an offering to Annihilation. AKA why Delta is best girl. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope to see you next time. Take care, everybody. Later.